There we go, and I'm on mute, so sorry about that. I did not realize. So let's start from maybe the very beginning. Technically fun. Um, so welcome to the event. My name is Cody Norton. I'm the co-founder of Ignite the Spark, energies of Islands of New Energy. This event is in collaboration between the British Embassy and Ignite the Spark. With that being said, this event is the bridging between two great countries that have already had a great connection for years. And specifically when it comes to energy, climate change, the UK is an industry leader when it comes to that. They have had set goals and reached a lot of these goals and are continuing to strive more. There's a lot that we could learn from the Israeli side and back and forth. There's a lot of Israeli companies that could help in the UK. And there's a lot that's very similar in that, you know, the UK is an actual island where Israel is somewhat of an island itself. Before we hop into too much more, let's talk about Hopin. So this is a great platform. This platform is going to stay open for 3 days. Right now, we're here in the main stage. We're going to hear from a variety of speakers. After the speakers are done and our keynote speaker, which make sure you stick around for that, you'll be able to go into breakout sessions that will go live. And there's 3 different sessions that you'll be able to go and participate in. You have one focused on innovation, on bundling, and then academia as well. And you could go and switch between them. And then after that, the biggest part is networking. Stick around for the networking. It's speed dating. It's quick, it's fast. You just say, I'm ready, and you're randomly paired up with someone. You have a maximum of 5 minutes, so each of you get about a 2-minute elevator pitch, and then you get to move forward. And then at the end of the day, the event's open. You can go, and if you go into events, you can go into people, and you could find whoever's there. You can have conversations directly with them, find them through their LinkedIns. You can go to expo booths from all our partners and our sponsors. And so this is kind of the platform. This is it. Let's get started. You know, since I did mention that this is in partnership with the British Embassy, the British Council, and the UK government from variety of sides, I would like to bring up the British Ambassador to Israel, Mr. Neil Wiggin, to come up and share a few words. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Hi, Cody, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you fine.
Great. So first I want to say that this is an event that we at the Embassy are really excited about. It's the first event that we've done in this area. And so I'm delighted that we've got such a great platform of speakers and panelists from Israel, from the UK, from the private sector, from the government, from academia. So I'm sure it'll be a really good and useful event, and I'm grateful that everyone's putting their time into it. And we're really pleased to be working with Cody and his team at Ignite and Wendy and her team at Startup Nation to try to make this a really useful and important event for everybody. As you probably all know, but as you certainly will know by the end of this event, clean energy is at the heart of the British government's agenda. Our Prime Minister has set out for 2021 a 10-point plan, a 10-point green plan for how we build back better, how we build back greener after the corona epidemic. And clean energy sits right at the heart of that, whether it's greater use of wind power, more efficient energy grids, looking at hydrogen cells, increasing the rollout of electric charging points, storage solutions. We think that clean energy and the technological solutions around it are right at the heart of that agenda for us in the UK. Energy is also at the heart of our international agenda. As you will all know, we're hosting in Scotland at the end of this year the UN climate change event, and that's going to be, we think, one of the biggest events on the international agenda this year, where we hope to achieve a real step change in progress towards reducing climate change, tackling its consequences, and helping the world use technology, raising financing in order to address all of those issues. And again, we're absolutely clear that energy and technological solutions around energy challenges are absolutely at the heart of that event. So at the embassy, we have taken our work on environmental issues, including on energy, which really was a very limited area of work for us and for our partnership with Israel, now sits right at the heart of our partnership with Israel. So teams from the UK Israel Tech Hub at the embassy, from the British Council, from our Department for Trade and Industry, and our Science and Innovation Network team, as well as political officers, are all working together with the Israeli government, with Israeli scientists, with the Israeli private sector and tech companies to see how we can build a really close relationship with Israel across those issues. So what we're talking about today is at the heart of our agenda, because we believe that the technological ability that we have in the UK, what we're trying to do and what Israel is trying to do presents a really good fit and a good opportunity for cooperation between both countries. And at the heart of that sort of plan for cooperation and the way of making it real is the World Clean Growth Alliance, which is a new program for us. It's our flagship project in this area, and I chair the board on it because I think it's so important. And it's really directly relevant to the event today. So it offers it's a program that offers a chance to bring together researchers, private sector, government, technology transfer teams to bring cutting edge research to bear on providing technological solutions through every stage of the research process. So it's a very open platform, and we're looking to get used today in other events to get people to sign on to it. So Cody talked about the Hopin platform. So I would really strongly encourage people to visit the World booth, which is part of the platform today, to pose questions, to pose challenges, and to try to see how you can get involved in that network. I've realized I've done the fatal ambassador trick of talking for too long already, so I will stop on that, hand back to Cody, but I wish you all a really useful set of talks today and look forward to staying in touch. Thanks, Cody.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I really do appreciate it. And don't worry about it, you didn't take that long, and there's a lot of invaluable information. As he brought up again, we have the expo booths, which is something that's really nice to have. Go check those out afterwards, and those will be open for the next 3 days. As I realized, I was muted, and so I've already given my full speech, but let's briefly discuss what Ignite the Spark is. Ignite the Spark is an Israeli grassroots energy tech innovation community. Our goal is to support energy technology both on a domestic and international front. We do, micro meetups. We do very specific meetups. We have focus on investors. We could focus on the actual specific technologies, maybe hydrogen, battery storage. We get CEOs together to then meet with energy consultants. We want to help solve the problems. And one of the things that we understand in today's world is that COVID-19 is going to pass. We see the vaccination rates increasing globally. Israel obviously is a front leader in this and leading the race. But climate change, energy technology, what we believe with Ignite the Spark is if one of these companies can succeed, it could be a game changer in the way that we consume energy and the future of our planet. Very briefly, I want to share with you something that we did with our partner right before I bring them up. This is the Israeli innovation ecosystem when it comes to energy technology. This map is available on our website, which I believe my co-founder Eshel posted at ignitethespark.org.il for you to go ahead and download. And it's a fully interactive map. There's different categories that we broke this down into. These are all the companies that are based here in Israel that have a Startup Nation Finder profile as well. Startup Nation Central has been an unreal partner in everything that we do. They've supported us in an immense way. And so I'd love to bring up their executive director of Startup Nation Central, Wendy Singer, to come right ahead and share more about her organization and what she does.
Great, thanks, Cody. And a special hello to Ambassador Wiggin and Hadar and all our friends at the UK Israel Tech Hub. So first, a word about Startup Nation Central. We are a nonprofit that was born about 8 years ago in order to connect Israeli tech and innovation with global challenges. One of the key ways that we do that is through a platform that we launched called Startup Nation Finder. It's essentially a mapping of the entire Israeli tech ecosystem. It's got all the startups, all the R&D centers, all the VC hubs, and even the technology coming out of academia. So this whole thing is online and free, startupnationfinder.org. And I invite all of you to just hop on and have a look. It's a great way to kind of scratch under the hood in terms of what's happening in the energy and sustainability sector. Now, for us at Startup Nation, this event is an ultimate connection between two worlds that we see as strategic for the Israeli ecosystem. On the one hand, you have the energy tech sector, which has been developing at an impressive clip. And at SNC, we're seeing this very clearly. It's the number of global corporates that are reaching out, the extent of the deal flow, or the new companies and startups that have been popping up. All of this, of course, is thanks to a highly supportive network, which has been evidenced by the community that Ignite the Spark has built. So, Cody, you're an unreal partner as well. And then you have the UK market, which is also seeing lots of change. A pessimist might perceive that as turmoil or even chaos, but we Israelis only see a new window opening. One of the iconic entrepreneurs in the Israeli tech sector is Nadav Tzafrir, and he was quoted in a book called Chutzpah saying, "We believe the most creative innovation happens at the edge of chaos." So there you have it. When you bring together innovation in the energy sector, UK market to one event, there must be a real business opportunity to be explored. In terms of exploring, I invite any of you to reach out to my colleagues, Jeremy Kletzstein and Michal Saror, if you'd like to further look into any of these topics. And with that, I wish all of you a productive and eye-opening 3 days ahead. Back to you, Cody.
Thank you, Wendy, and for the kind words. And by the way, Startup Nation Central, they have a booth as well. So make sure you go check out their expo booth. As you saw, Michal, they posted the Finder link, so you can go and check it out. It's not just for the energy sector. As we realize, this is a multi-dimensional approach. You know, energy technology is then paired up with Industry 4.0, and then it's paired up with e-mobility. It goes across the board at the end of the day. So then you're able to see companies that, you know, that can potentially do business, and at the end of the day, networking. This is what we're here for. And this is both sides of the coin. We have the Israeli side and we have the UK side. So first, just very briefly, I'd like to bring up the Deputy Director General for Planning, Policy and Strategy for the Israeli Ministry of Energy, Sharon Hatzor, for a few brief words.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, friends, and partners, and I'm honored to be here. And I will take part of the UK and Israeli energy talk. And first of all, I want to say thanks to the British Embassy and the ambassador, also to Ignite the Spark for organizing this great event. And I'll spend my 2 minutes telling you a little bit about our ministry energy strategy and policy. So in the past few years, the Israeli Ministry of Energy is investing greatly in developing the Israeli energy sector to become cleaner, greener, and more efficient and competitive, all while encouraging creativity and innovation and, of course, breakthrough technologies. So the Israeli Ministry of Energy is promoting the transition from the usage of polluting fuels toward solar energy and other clean, environmentally free energy sources. The ministry main goals over the next 3 years are to phase out completely the use of coal by 2025 and increase the use of renewable energy resources to at least 30% by 2030. And those steps, together with a massive reform that we have in our electricity sector, are making a huge shift in our energy sector. So as you all know, Israel is a very small country, and our obstacles to move forward renewable are a bit different. We indeed have a lot of sun, but we are lack of hydro and wind energy, and we have lack of land alongside with the high population growth, and it's very noticeable. Therefore, energy storage technologies and other tech solutions are critical for our ability to move behind our current goals. As part of our policy in minimizing the use of polluting fuels is to make a change in the transportation sector. We set up goals, and our ministry is investing in EV charging points throughout the country in order to encourage customers to purchase electric vehicles. And also, of course, the ministry is investing greatly in R&D projects as well as in academia researches. As I mentioned already, we believe that the technological breakthrough and innovation is the future and will get us to our ambitious goals. We also believe that energy collaboration are the bridge to a sustainable Middle East. The transition to locally produced natural gas had a great impact on promoting cooperation and economic relation with our neighbors. Israeli exporting natural gas to Egypt and Jordan, and alongside with natural gas export, we also promote various of regional initiatives such as international grid connections. So just to summarize, I can say that there are many challenges that we have to go through in order to gain our target in the next 30 years. But I believe that the huge step that we've made in the past few years will encourage and motivate all of us to make even a bigger step in the near future. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be here. And of course, I'll be happy to be in touch with all of you and have a great time. And thank you very much, and shalom.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate it. I think she definitely does discuss the all-encompassing aspect of energy technology and the integration across multiple facets and multiple sectors. What I would like to do is now hear from the UK side. So for the head of energy and strategy for the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, I'd like to bring up Mr. Adam Bell.
Thanks, Cody. Apologies for the clunky development. The ambassador's already spoken about the Prime Minister's 10-point plan, but I want to give you a bit of a sense of the scale of our ambition in this space as well. It goes beyond even this decade. So if you pluck someone from about 30 years ago, in 1991, and put them in the UK today, the energy system would look pretty much. Still use power our cars using fossil fuels. We still use natural gas to heat our homes, and the bulk of our electricity still comes from fossil. There's an increasing proportion of renewables. But in about 29 years' time, all of that is going to have to change. And it's an enormous infrastructure challenge. It's difficult to underplay what that means. It means the enormous expansion of low-carbon electricity, wind, nuclear, solar, hydrogen generation too. It means rebuilding our industry to use, not use fossil fuels, but also to use carbon capture and storage for those processes, like steel making that rely upon the carbon component of the fuel. It means electrifying our light vehicles and converting heavier transport like ships and planes and boats to use different sorts of fuels too. And it means changing the way in which we heat our homes. But it also means, and this is particularly relevant, I think, to an awful lot of tech people on this call, digitizing our system. Currently, our system is relatively analog in the 50s and 60s. And it's not necessarily set up for anything other than a chap at a control center calling a power station and saying, "Can you please turn down your output now?" All the electric heating devices, all the electric vehicles we're going to install across the country will radically change how that system works. Data will flood in from our consumers, from their cars, and their ability to control and modulate their demand will really help us move towards a more heavily renewable system. This is going to be a radical change. It's a change in the direction of travel, of flows of energy from the system, a change in the way in which consumers see themselves too, and they will have a strong part in getting us towards net zero. But of course, doing all this is going to require an enormous amount of innovation, and it's because of that I'm really, really excited to see what we can do working together on this agenda. Thank you, Cody.
Adam, thank you so much. And I think you touched on that, and I think everyone has touched on it in general, is that it's the future. It's trying to solve problems together, and doing it in a way that it's going to take a lot of joint effort across the board, and future trends and the way that we're moving forward. I couldn't think of anyone better. I know my co-founder is a huge fan. He actually made me a fan as well of our keynote speaker. He hosts a podcast, The Fully Charged Show, and I'd like to bring him up, Mr. Robert Lewin. Today is actually, just so everyone knows, today is Robert's birthday. So make sure that everyone sends him a message wishing him a happy birthday. But Robert, happy birthday, and I'd love to hear from you, and I think the entire audience would love to hear about your views on the trends and what we are seeing today. And I'll turn the stage over to you.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you, Cody. Thank you. I wish I hadn't mentioned my birthday. I just kept getting lots of messages when I first logged in. I'm very old. I'll just leave it there. This is an enormous privilege. Thank you so much for inviting me. Really appreciate the time you're giving me to do this, because it is, a deep joy in the latter section of my life to be up to my neck in these topics. It was an unexpected turn of events that got me here. It's a very long story. I won't bore you with it. But what I think I'd like to briefly do is look back at the last 10 years, because as Adam just said, if you were to jump from 1991 to now, you might not immediately notice any differences, but actually there are some really profound ones, and that's partly what drives me to make this series is the fact that things are changing, and the general public are often not aware of it. Particularly, for instance, offshore wind. The very fact that it's offshore, we don't see it. 99% of the people in this country don't look out at sea from their houses and notice on the horizon there's a lot of wind turbines. So we're not aware of the huge impact that's made on our energy system. But I want to look quickly back at the last 10 years. So when I first was driving an electric car regularly, which was now about 12 years ago, there was one rapid charger in the United Kingdom, one, and it was behind a locked gate. So you had to ask permission to use it, and it very often didn't work. There is now 22,410, I had to check, publicly available rapid chargers in the country, and that will triple, I think, in the next couple of years. So a huge change that we've seen in that particular area. The UK government's announcement last year of the end of sales of combustion engine vehicles by 2030 is a remarkable a political statement to make, and I'm really proud that the government have done that. I'm very supportive of the fact that they've done that. There will be a lot of kickback. A lot of people are moaning about it, but I think it's going to hold, and I think people will see the general population, I think, are really coming around to it, because I think that's one of the critical things that's changed in the last 10 years. I do a lot of public speaking about this. I'll rephrase that. I did a lot of public speaking about this until the last year. And what I'm very aware of is the public reaction to the notion of electric vehicles and renewable energy, two really intrinsically linked topics and technologies. 10 years ago, it was electric cars don't really work. They look awful, and you have to throw the batteries away after 3 years. Jeremy Clarkson told me that. They're rubbish and they just don't work. That was the reaction 10 years ago. And some of that was based on, there was very limited amount of electric cars. There was nowhere to charge them, and they were very expensive. And who knew how long the batteries would last? No one did. We hadn't ever used that technology in that role before. So there was no way of knowing. We now know slightly differently, and slowly that knowledge is sort of seeped into the general population's consciousness. So now what I hear is, I'd love an electric car. I wish I could have one, but they're too expensive, or they're still too expensive, or they don't tow caravans. It's a very common one. Now there's lots of electric cars that can tow caravans, and there aren't enough public chargers. And so those are all very legitimate problems. And I think they're also, the good thing about that is they're also all solvable problems. Without question, the price of new electric cars is coming down, and without question, the number of public chargers is going up. So there will be solutions to that. I've always said electric cars are not the solution to all our problems. They won't solve the world's energy crisis. They won't solve the CO2. They are a step in one very important step, but a small step in the right direction. And the main thing that all the people I've spoken to who have electric cars is it makes them aware of where the energy they use comes from, which I have to say, as a person who drove combustion cars for 45 years, never occurred to me. Didn't even think about it ever. So that is true. So what I would like to quickly look at is what will definitely happen in the next 10 years and what I would really love to and might happen in the next 10 years. So I think we will see a very rapid increase in the adoption of electric vehicles in very specific areas. Private vehicles, certainly, without question, but I think that's going to be a slow but steady increase. There'll be an endless number of new vehicles available. Back in 2011, I worked out there was 3 or 4 commercially available, virtually viable electric cars that you could buy, and they were all quite expensive. None of them went terribly far. There's now over 75 different models of pure electric vehicles available in the European market, many of them in the UK. So we're very blessed in that sense. In 2019, the Wall Street Journal calculated that car makers had publicly pledged that they would spend $225 billion over the next 10 years developing new technology in electric cars. I think we can say that's quite a big commitment. The areas that I see growing fastest, last mile delivery, without question. 2 days ago, I had my first delivery. I live in a remote rural area. It's a long way from anywhere. And I had my first delivery from a well-known international delivery company. They don't need any more publicity, in an electric van with their logo emblazoned on the first time. If I lived in a city, I wouldn't be surprised about that, but I'm living in a fairly remote rural area. That van had to travel 40 or 50 miles, doing deliveries to get to my house. So that was really impressive that is slowly happening. And I think we will see that happening very fast. A good example of that is a company in America called Rivian, who everyone is aware of, that's into electric cars. They're making cool pickup trucks that are really powerful and fast. They've just increased, Amazon have just increased their order for electric delivery vans from 100 to 150,000 units. And they're already producing these. That's where they're making the money. We're going to see an enormous uptake of urban delivery vehicles, urban public transport, taxis. They will be electric way, way before most people are driving electric cars. The other area that I didn't expect to see is electric plants. So diggers, earth movers, bulldozers, really big, large electric plants. We're starting to see those come onto the market. There's a quarry in Sweden now that the entire fleet of machinery they use on this quarry is electrically powered. So huge, and we're talking massive trucks that can carry 50 tons of rock, huge diggers, huge hydraulic diggers. It's just electric motors and batteries instead of diesel engines. So that's happening. I've actually had 2 electric diggers at my house making a mess of my garden, so I know they work. And then fleet vehicles, I think, is the other area that we're, from the people we've spoken to, a very rapid adoption. So companies that supply fleets of vehicles for their employees, it's so easy for them to transfer their purchasing power. So it won't be 1 or 2 cars, it will be hundreds. And that is happening already. Okay, another one which I think is really interesting, that we filmed a garbage truck, we call them a dustbin lorry, fully electric, so much quieter than the diesel ones that come around and pick up your bins and do all the recycling. And that we followed one that was being tested by various council areas in the UK. And there was one electric truck. Well, Manchester City Council have just started using 28. They bought 28 of them, and they're using them as regular bin lorries. So this technology, the changeover is very rapid. I've waited years for the first bin lorry, and now 28 come along at once. So other area that a lot of people talk about is fully autonomous vehicles. I've had the privilege of being driven around in 200% fully autonomous vehicles. Incredible technology. I felt very safe. I still think it's 5 years away. The energy consumption of the computing power needed to make that possible was enormous. It reduced a Nissan Leaf with an average urban driving range of, say, 150 miles to 40 miles. It had 40 miles range because it was running this vast array of very space-hungry electronics and computers in the back. Now, that was 3 years ago. That will already have been shrunk down, but I think we've got a lot of places to go. The technology I've seen that really inspired me was, again, last mile delivery, fully autonomous last mile delivery for cities, so that you get a call and you go down outside your apartment or your house, and there's this little box on wheels, and it's got a special door with your package in, and that door opens and you take your package out and it goes off somewhere else. That I can see coming much faster. They're low speed, they only do a local area of delivery, they don't have drive, safe and reliable. At that level, that sort of machinery is very, very plausible. The other area that we've become incredibly aware of in the last few years, and I'm sure this is the case, I'm sure many of you will be aware of this, is the Chinese automotive manufacturing development. It's happened so quickly, kind of behind, we haven't really been aware of it, but there's companies now that are producing really competent, really well-made electric cars that are £20,000 cheaper than a Tesla and basically do the same job. They go the same distance, they're the same speed, they're the same size. And, there's a lot of criticism of them that they've just stolen the technology. I think if you steal the technology and make something worse, that's really, really annoying. If you use the technology as a guide and make something better and cheaper, it's a very difficult argument. And I think the biggest challenge to the established European and North American automotive industry, which is huge, is from China, I think, more than anything else. And there are more. A very popular electric car in the UK is the MG SE electric vehicle, which is 100% electric, really, really solid, has a really high safety rating, and is 100% Chinese. And I've seen them on the road all over the place. They're very popular. So often we won't even know we've got a Chinese car. So the increased use of rapid chargers and what's changing in the technology of rapid chargers is really fascinating. I've just used a new rapid charger that's installed near a freeway, near a motorway, near where I live, and they are capable of delivering 450 kilowatts. And that would be a sort of power that there's no car yet that's built that can take that, but they've built the charging infrastructures that can deliver it. So when someone does do that, and what you're talking about there is you're talking about adding, say, between 150 and 200 kilometers of range in 5 minutes. That's the sort of technology that we're looking at that's already in the ground functioning. I charged my car that I was test driving on that charger, and that charged at about 120 kilowatts, and that was fast. So 450 kilowatts, that technology is really rapidly emerging and being developed very well. There are now large charging hubs in the UK which don't have to have such a large grid connection, because they have massive batteries on site that are being charged 24 hours a day. And those batteries then dump the power into the car through as they have at this one location, 38 rapid chargers. So they can charge 38 cars at very high speed without melting the wires, as we were often told in the past. So that's what is happening in this country. I've just done an interview with an amazing Israeli company called RE, who are building, many of you will know about what their work, it's extraordinary. So they're building electric platforms, skateboards they're called, 4 wheels and a battery pack and the control system that goes with that. They're building that so that car companies don't have to do that. They've specialized and built the best possible running gear you can put in a car, and then a car company can then build really cool bodywork and concentrate on that and make it look really cool. And the way that they've designed this, that Rehab, so that the way that the parts of the vehicle are replaceable is genius. And I love this aspect of this, the liberation of electric drivetrains have done to engineers and car designers. It's changed the whole dynamic of the industry, and I think in really, really exciting ways. And that's kind of what we hope is going to happen in the next 10 years. And I'm just hoping I haven't gone too far. I'm nearly finished. Here's a couple of really important points that I've really become aware of in the last 10 years. Currently, if you own a private car, if you own a car yourself, it's not being used for 95% of the time that you own it. There may be exceptions of people who drive a lot. Then it goes down to 90% of the time you own it. The rest of the time it's just sitting there doing nothing. If you have a petrol or diesel vehicle, it's literally useless while you're not using it. If you have an electric car, there are emerging some really important uses. Vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, vehicle to load. All those things make that car slightly more useful during its lifetime. And there's a lot of debate about how that affects battery life, but there's a lot of evidence to say it actually is beneficial to battery life. So that is an important key point, but you still got to think, is that the right way of approaching the problem? That's the way the automotive industry is. Don't buy a diesel car, buy one of our electric ones, then you'll be fine. Still want to sell us private cars. And I understand why, that's what their business is built on. But it might be worth considering, particularly this is going to be a generational change. Do you really need to own a car? I would really appreciate having access to one, and access to one that's fairly frictionless, so that I can order a car on my phone and it arrives at my door and I get in and drive it. That technology is literally on our doorsteps at the moment. At the moment, out of the global population, about 18% of the global population own a car. Really small percentage. And there's no materials available on this planet for everyone. If everyone suddenly became middle class and wanted a car, there's no room to park them, there's no roads to drive them all on, and there's no materials to make them. And I'm not talking the rare materials that are getting a lot of publicity, cobalt, nickel, all that. No, steel, iron, aluminium. There's not enough of it. So we've got to find a solution that allows us to use cars, because I think they're very useful, particularly in our weather in this country. Today, I do not want to go out on my bike. It's a horrible day. It's lovely to have a car. So that is, we've got to find a sustainable way of using a new form of transport. And electric vehicles do lend themselves to that much more readily. And also autonomous vehicles that you're never driven by an autonomous vehicle. This is the first step I see with autonomous vehicle, but you might be able to order one and it drives to you with no one in it. As soon as you do that, and this is insurance companies that have explained this, as soon as you have a vehicle with no one in it, covering that vehicle from an insurance point of view is a lot more easy. From a legal point of view, it's a lot easier. It only has to avoid other people. It doesn't matter what happens in the car. The car can destroy itself in extreme situations if it's going to kill someone. So it can choose between, do I run over that old lady crossing the road, or do I drive into this lamppost and smash myself to bits to save her? And there's no one in the car. You don't have to worry about them. That's a whole other topic, but a very interesting one. So I'm praying that in future generations, my son, for example, my daughter, they never own a car. They use them, they drive, but when they stop driving, they just park them, leave them, and someone else uses it. Or the car drives off and charges itself. We would be able to do what we do now with about 10% of the number of cars on the road as we have now. So our cities would be liberated from that jammed up, loads of cars parked on half on the pavement, half on the street. All that stuff that we get in cities would be really transformative. So that might become a thing. Just quickly want to touch on batteries, because we're very conscious that we use lithium-ion batteries with the materials that they use. One of the first things we're going to go and film when we're allowed to is at Manchester University Battery Research Department, where they have, I think I'm allowed to talk about this, and there's a lot of this going on in Israel as well, where they have carbon-on-carbon batteries. So they function already as test batteries in a laboratory. And I think it's going to be probably 5 years before they're commercially available. But if they can produce this, carbon-on-carbon batteries, what is in a carbon-on-carbon battery? Carbon. That is it. There's nothing else. These are carbon fiber nanotubes that they've worked out how to do it. This is all to do with all this, graphene, the graphene obsession that was in the press a few years ago sort of disappeared. But it's disappeared because people are actually working to develop this. Revolutionary change this would make. Massive increase in energy density, massive reduction in cost, massive increase in life expectancy of those batteries. And what do you do at the end of life with a carbon-on-carbon battery? I did ask the people who are working on them. They said you wouldn't really bother. You'd throw it away because it's carbon. It's not a toxic material. This also allows larger vehicles to be battery powered, which is already happening, and I think it will happen sooner than people think. But once you get the next generation of battery technology, I think we can all see that there will be very major changes. So one of the things I used to hope was that we could have electrified ships. Some shipping was mentioned in the list of big challenges we have, and it's certainly hydrogen fuel cells definitely have a role there. Hydrogen as a motivating fuel for big ships. I've had the privilege of filming on really big ships. They are really big. They're not small. They're massive. You know, the engine is 5 times the size of my house. You know, they're big machines, and so it's a really big challenge to stop using fossil fuels to drive those machines. Those ships. But one of the things we're going to see this year is a large offshore wind support ship, a ship that goes out to service offshore wind turbines. And that is being converted to a battery electric ship. And this is bigger than a boat. It's not a huge, ocean going container ship, but it's a large ship, and it will be 100% powered by battery. And one of the things they're working on, which I just think is such a cool idea, is what have you got in a wind turbine out in the North Sea? You've got electricity. So they're trying to work out how, while the ship is docked next to a wind turbine, it can be also charging from the power that wind turbine is generating, or from a nearby one that is generating. So those things are very exciting. One of the things I never expected to see 10 years ago, and I'm rounding up now, if anyone's getting tense, very near the end, but this is so exciting. I never expected, I never thought about, it never occurred to me when I was first driving electric cars, and then I could see that electric motorbikes or electric delivery vans, all those things were very visible 10 years ago. What was totally out of the picture was electric flight. And the first 2 things we are filming later this month in the UK are electric aircraft, one of which has flown over 450 miles already. It's a 12-seater, still quite small, 12-seater. The other one is fascinating, developed by Rolls-Royce. They have an enormous array of electrically powered flying machines being developed. Now, some of those we've had to sign NDAs. We're not allowed to talk about them. But the one we are allowed to talk about, we've already seen, is a Red Bull aerobatic plane. And the peculiarity of this particular piece of technology is the electric Red Bull aerobatic plane, which will be flown this year, can fly faster, higher, and longer than their petrol equivalents. So they're more powerful, they can fly for longer, and they can fly higher. The engines don't need oxygen. You know, a combustion engine needs oxygen in order to operate. Huge amount of heavy, complex technology to make an internal combustion engine work at high altitude. An electric motor doesn't mind. It's not bothered. And they are developing, using that as a test bed to develop other things. So they're developing the flight systems, the motors, the control systems, the batteries to do that. I never thought I'd see that. And I genuinely now, because it's my birthday today, I want to live at least another 10 years. I'm trying to be fit and healthy because I want to be able to do a short haul passenger flight somewhere around Europe in an electric plane. I think it is possible. I think we are going to see that. This whole area, I haven't mentioned all the technology in renewables. One thing I just quickly want to say, because that's another one we're going to say, which could be very useful in Israel, is gravitricity. Just Google gravitricity. Just put gravity and tricity together. Gravitricity is a company in Scotland. Fairly obvious what they lift weights up, and then when they drop down, it generates electricity. They've got a test system going in the docks in Glasgow now. Really exciting idea. They're talking about using them in old coal mines, but there are brilliant new ways of developing energy storage, which is the critical thing for renewables. The more electricity we've learned to store, the larger amounts we can store, not just in batteries, obviously they have a role, but there's millions of other ways. Obviously pumped storage is the big one that Norway use. We use that to a certain extent, but there's so many other areas. But the other one I always want to say is, if we've got 10 million electric cars in the UK and 90% of them aren't being used, there's a big battery for you, widely distributed over the whole country. That applies to Israel in exactly the same way. I don't want to talk anymore because I'm sure I've gone way over my time. I'm just being told if I'm not being told off. But that is all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening and putting up with me. Oh, and watch Fully Charged.
Of course, make sure that you subscribe. Watch Fully Charged. Robert, I wish you don't say that. You're going to live longer than 10 years, but let's make sure these trends within the next 10 years, and if not even sooner, within the next 5 years, I think. So Robert, again, thank you so much. There was a lot to unpack there. This is going to be recorded, so there was a lot of great information. So we'll be able to share it with you again. So next steps from here. I want to ask that all our panelists go over to their sessions, and then all our attendees go ahead and find your sessions. There are 3 different sessions. If you look on the left, it says now sessions. There's one for academia. There's one we'll be talking about unbundling. And then there's another one that is all about innovation and commercialization and talking about startups and how these companies did it. This is it for the main stage. So go ahead and check out sessions. Afterwards, make sure you stick around for the speed dating networking. So with that being said, thank you for sticking around for the main stage, and go find your sessions.